Maybe Rob Menier will show up while we're doing this. Okay, we could call the meeting to order with the now, what, 4 or 5 year recitation. I'd like to inform everyone that Sean Driscoll, the authority's communications director, is making an audio and video recording of today's meeting. If there's anyone else making an audio recording of today's meeting, please identify yourself. If joining virtually, press the raise your hand icon on the Zoom dashboard. Or if you're joining by telephone, by pressing star 9 on the keypad, and when you recognize, state your name for the record. Thank you.
Nice job, Jim.
Aquí están invitados.
Thank you. That's all I've got, Mr. Malkin.
Okay, thank you. Then I need to read the statement regarding remote participation pursuant to Section 20 of Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 as amended. The search committee members, hello, Rob, are participating remotely in today's meeting because their physical attendance today would be unreasonably difficult. All search committee members in attendance, all members participating via Zoom video conferencing, will be clearly audible to each other. And as a result of the remote participation, all votes taken, if any taken today, shall be by roll call. So if everybody's got that, we're out of the way with that. I expect we'll need about an hour. We have 2 items at the beginning, which would be review of questions for that we're going to give to the search firms, and also a discussion around whether we should make those questions available to the search firms prior to sitting down with them or in advance for their preparation. And then the second would be a review of the preliminary set of questions that this group has put together and discuss them for the general manager candidate. I do want to restate that we will be, once we get a search firm engaged and we begin to go through candidates that they propose to us, the initial screening of those candidates will be an executive session, as doing otherwise would jeopardize potentially unsuccessful candidates in their careers. But when we do get down to the final candidates, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4, those conversations with the entire board will be held in public session. So there's that. Also, a third item that we're going to deal with today is the issue of a matrix that we could use, or a rubric, as we evaluate both the search firms and the candidates to try and make it as organized as possible to pull our thoughts together. And then following that, I'd like to have a discussion about the issue of the composition of the search committee. As a number of you know, there are members of our communities who have expressed interest in having this search committee include someone from the public, and I'd like to have a discussion about that at the end of our session today. So with that, Janice, I'd also like to point out for the public that all communications regarding this have been through Janice Kennefick, so they have not been shared or violating any open meeting law. So things have gone to Janice, and then Janice back to the individual members of the search committee. So with that, Janice, maybe you could pull together and just go through the list of questions that we have so far for the search committee. And what I'd like is you to go through the questions, and if any member of the working group has concerns or wishes to discuss those questions, just sort of indicate by a tick, and then we'll go back to those. So we'll get through a list of them quickly, and then we'll go back and discuss the ones that there are issues with. And following that, then we discuss the issue of whether or not to give the questions in advance. Clear as mud? Okay with everybody?
Sure, go ahead.
All righty.
Yes.
Janet, the questions that we're talking about for the search firm, can you lay them out, please?
Yes, before I start, I'd like to just identify who's in the room with me. Terrence Keneally is to my left, our general counsel, and Sean Driscoll is here as well, communications director.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, so I will start with the questions that have been provided the draft for the general managers search firms. The first question, can you summarize your experience conducting executive searches of a nature similar to this search? Have you conducted executive searches for positions that are public facing? How will you recruit and assess candidates that understand the importance of customer service in a complex setting like the Steamship Authority? Okay,
Mhm.
next question. Do you want me to just continue reading the questions? Okay. Next question. Can you summarize your experience conducting searches in the maritime sector? Have you placed senior leadership candidates for a ferry system? What is your assessment of the current market for senior leaders in the maritime sector? How long should this search take? Next set of questions. What is your perception of the key challenges facing the Steamship Authority today? How would you tailor the search to attract excellent candidates that will face these challenges? What is your opinion of the GM job description? What would be your approach to improving the job description for the current search? Given your understanding of the needs and requirements of the Steamship Authority, what do you think are the key attributes of a good GM candidate? And do you think we can find that person? Next series of questions. Would you please describe the search process? How many candidates do you think you will be able to identify? What is the process for initial vetting candidates? Do you have a portal for accumulating candidate information, CVs, letters of interest, etc., for use by the search committee? Do you have a rubric for helping evaluate candidates? And how long do you think the search will take? Next series, how do you establish relationships with prospective candidates? Can you describe how you will convince candidates to consider this position? What is your approach to working with the Steamship Authority Search Committee? Can you tell us the story of a successful search that would be relevant to the search for the Steamship Authority's GM? And have you had an unsuccessful search? Can you describe the circumstances? Can you explain the key elements of your proposal engagement agreement with the Steamship Authority? And what consideration would you give the candidates brought to the process by the Steamship Authority? Any questions before I move forward? Okay.
Well,
Hang on, Janice. Bob?
if you want to read them all, some of the ones that I have are duplicated on Rob's. And I think Rob has done an excellent job of pulling this together. But I don't know if we are going to pick and choose questions out of this or, have a candidate answer all of those questions in, each category here. So, but that's, if you just want to go on with the rest of them, so we're dealing with, everything we have and then come back to it.
Do you want me to come back to
Yeah.
your questions, Bob? Okay.
Can I just maybe just get a little context? So that those questions were grouped by topic, and each topic aligned with the rubric that is another one of our agenda items today. The idea being that we try to make sure that we cover each evaluation area with some questions. We certainly don't have enough time to, in an interview, to ask all those questions.
Right.
And so, but we do want to cover each of the topics at some level. And so it would seem to me that we could pick and choose among those questions so that we cover each topic, or we can, inform the candidates, here are the 7 or 8 topics we're going to talk about so that you're aware what our question is going to be about, and then pick from that grouping of questions, or add, Bob, yours to that grouping so that we have, and then, sort of use that as sort of extemporaneously choose where we're, as we go along. Because there's no way to cover all of those questions in an hour interview, but we do want to cover each of the topics. And just Janice, you had sort of mentioned it, but there was topic number 1 was executive search experience. Topic number 2 was maritime search experience. Topic number 3 was understanding the Steamship Authority. Topic number 4 was the job description skill. Topic number 5 was the quality of the search process. Topic number 6 was chemistry with the lead recruiter. Topic number 7 was an anecdotal example of a successful search. And topic number 8 was the commercial terms and conditions. So those were at a high level, the topics. And then there was 3 or 4 questions within each one of those. So, we certainly don't have to use them all. And Bob is likely to have some better ones.
Now,
All right, so
no, I believe, I agree with you, Rob. What I'm hoping to do here is to flesh out everything that people in this search group have thought of.
Yeah.
Given not only our own work, but the input that we've received,
Right.
either from our friends or from prior experience.
Yep.
And then go from there. But I wanted to flesh it out in terms of where we are at the moment.
Okay, I just wanted to explain the framework that I was thinking. So, and it's by no means, I'm sure that there's some other great ideas. So,
I believe from correspondence that I've seen from Mr. Jones, he also has a rubric kind of approach as well when we get further down the track.
Okay.
So please, Janice.
okay. As we look for general manager, we need to find an individual with a track record of successful experience in dealing with the following. Fleet optimization, rotating vessels. Oh, I'm sorry, those are the questions I believe for the candidate. Okay, so back to Mr. Jones' questions. Would you like me to review those, Mr. Jones? I know there's one that stood out to me, and it was how do you ensure confidentiality throughout the process? That's something that I just wanted to put that question out there. And if there are additional questions on that form that you'd like me to review, just let me know.
Bob, is there anything further on that?
Yeah, well, you are very, very muffled. So I can't understand what you're saying. So I don't know how to clear. Maybe that speaker might help.
Is this better, Bob? Can you hear me now?
That's much better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So I'd be happy to review the additional questions that you submitted, Mr. Jones, if you would like me to do that. But as you said, some of these are redundant with
You can just run through them. I mean, some of them, touch, with Rob, but just run through them. They're quick.
Okay. What experience have you had placing similar senior management positions within the marine industry? From your experience, can you identify any specific challenges you feel the steamship may face in finding the right general manager for the profile of the Steamship Authority as you know it? What sourcing methods or methodology do you use to find top management candidates? What key challenges do you foresee the Steamship Authority facing in the search for a new general manager? How will you keep the authority informed during the search process? And how will you share your professional opinion on various topics and challenges with the committee as we move forward? How do you ensure that you are reaching out to a diverse market? Do you have an estimate of the amount of time it will take before you are able to produce qualified candidates? As the Steamship Authority must adhere to the Massachusetts open meeting laws, where business must be held in open session with the public present. Do you foresee a reluctance of candidates submitting their names for employment as it may jeopardize their confidentiality? If so, what recommendations would you offer to mitigate this problem? And finally, how will you go about developing a profile of the Steamship Authority and then attempting to match a candidate's profile with the culture of the authority, having a similar set of morals and goals?
More ice.
And the next questions that we have are, as we look for a general manager, we need to find an individual with a track record of successful experience in dealing with the following. Fleet optimization, rotating vessels in and out of service for maintenance, space, inventory, and parts. Parts inventory, management of discounted and full fare passengers, complicated reservation system, unions, baggage handling, freight, business, seasonal demand. Additionally, the individual must have had experience in team building, open communication to and from staff, organizational leadership and proactive communication with clients, news organizations, and state officials. Given these issues, what can your firm bring to the process that is different than the offering of your competitors? How can we measure your success in similar situations? And what is your view of the Steamship Authority as an attractive opportunity for a candidate?
Thank you, Janice.
Welcome.
I'd ask the,
You know,
go ahead, Bob.
when we get into the interview, and start a dialogue, things will just unfold as we're doing the interview, but we should pick, several key subjects that have to be covered, must be covered. And other than that, would just, usually, one thing leads to next and whatever. So I'm not sure that I want to put a time limit on an hour, but that was a good recommendation to shoot for. But anyways, I from my list, a couple of just topics that I'm concerned about the confidential I'm trying to read this. I'm concerned that we keep everything confidential, and as you said, we'll go into executive session when we're interviewing the candidates. And for the headhunter, I'm concerned about how he's going to keep us, in touch. She is our employee, and I'm going to be looking for their advice as we move forward in this process here. So I think that's important to notice, and they're the professionals, and I expect, an interrelationship, with the headhunter when it gets to that. And that's about it. I mean, Rob has covered, numerous issues here. So, and I think he did a good job highlighting what the criteria is. And I don't know how you want to go about, just zeroing in on specifics. Mr. Chair.
You're so formal. My thought has been, I think, Rob, you had 8 categories.
Yeah, 8 or 9.
Right. Is that we would take this questions that Janice has worked through, break them into those categories, and we'll pretty much see which ones are either similar or identical, and reduce that number of things that Janet has already read to all of us. And that would leave us with buckets of 3 or 4 or 5 questions in each bucket. And then as we get into the interviews with the placement firms, that could be a bit more freewheeling in terms of what we choose. The only thing that, Robin, maybe you can fill me in. The only thing that I find I haven't heard a lot of discussion about is the experience that we would expect to find in a successful candidate. You know, the types of things that they have done that, and this may be for the candidate as opposed to the search firm, but I think the search firm should know that as a foundation, the candidate would need to have these types of experiences in his or her career to give us confidence that that person would fit our bill. Now, perhaps that's buried within the list of questions that Janice brought up, but I'd want to make sure that that was in front of the placement agencies. Comment on
Yeah,
that?
you know, our questions are pretty detailed. And I would almost think, you know, in starting the interview, you know, just a blanket question to the candidate, you know, can you tell us a little bit about your background? What have you done? Et cetera, et cetera. Just a general question and let them expand from there, other than trying to, you know, ask a detailed question.
Yeah, I agree. But
And
right now we're talking about the placement agencies.
yes,
And
Oh,
that, it's,
well,
I'm
it would
sorry.
fit there too, but that's okay.
And if I may, the questions for the candidates, I don't recall receiving I had submitted my draft questions for the candidates. I don't recall receiving any other questions for the candidates. They were from the search firms.
Correct.
Yeah,
So,
truthfully, I haven't thought about that yet because I
okay,
figure we got time to think about that, but I was focused on the search firm for the moment.
great. I just wanted to make sure
But
that
I haven't yet.
we're on
I
the same
haven't
page.
sent you anything.
Thank you.
I don't have
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
Great.
Nat, you have any comments so far? You're muted.
No, everything's good. I do have one thing to add that you guys have probably already thought of this. State reps and the experience that this person has to have a little bit of that as well. We have a lot of eyes on the steamship at the state level. That's, you know, I don't want to say that that's always been the case. It really is somewhat of a new chapter. And that's another question or some, you know, piece of this process with the next candidate or the candidates. They have to have that expectation that that's going to be something that they're going to have to be able to deal with.
Yep. God forbid the word lobbyist comes to mind.
Yeah, that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, sticking with Rob's in the criteria. I mean, this is what I was talking about. You know, the general, the executive search experience, and you know that could be asked as a question. And we have another question here in the search for the, you know, maritime experience and the understanding of the steamship authority and job description skill. I think I'm just looking to condense some of this thing, so we're really not necessarily asking 20 questions, that we're really asking 4 or 5, you know, to expand upon. And I don't know if you.
Like I
It
said,
could get
Bob,
very-
I was thinking that those are questions that fit within those categories and we can pick one of them. I guess I would argue that if we're going to evaluate them on the basis of 8 categories, we'd want to ask at least 8 questions. But like you said, it's going to be a little bit of a flow once you start a conversation. But by no means was my thinking that we asked all those questions. And I think you've brought up an important one that I really didn't cover, which is the notion of confidentiality and to what extent that's going to be a problem to find a good candidate. I think that's a pretty important one.
All right.
Okay.
But
What's the sense of the group then? Would it be that we take the 8 categories, divide the questions into the categories, delete those that are duplicative, and then use that as a list to deal with the placement agencies when we interview them? And we don't have to ask each one, and it will, hopefully be a give and take rather than just a dog and pony show presentation of somebody's slides.
right. So, one of the reasons why I prefer to, I mean, obviously we're in public session, so people can be listening whenever they want, but my thinking would be to give them the topics we're going to talk about. And then we pick the question within each of those topics. And that way there's a little bit of an extemporaneousness to it. But we've given them enough of a heads up about what the topics are we're going to be talking about so that they can prepare. What I don't want is if you send out 20 questions, they're going to come back with a presentation of answers to 20 questions, and it's no longer a conversation. So that's why I think we send out the topics, and we have some choice among those topics about which question we ask, and that's up to us.
And I've always found in trying to, wordsmith a document with a committee, anytime that I've ever done that, and it eventually just take it home and do it at home, because I was right. I wrote the cover for the Charter Commission and at the town of Barnstable, and I met with another member there for coffee, and it went just stagnant. So we took it home and we got it done. I think all of these things, need to be studied and condensed. And Bob, you've done such a good job on this.
So a question I
Maybe-
would have is if we take the path to give topics to do we, and there's 8 topics, we could each take 2 topics, and to be consistent, maybe we do the same 2 topics each for each one, or we split it up, however we want to do it. But that way it kind of rotates amongst the 4 of us, and it provides it, hopefully makes it more conversational.
I'm comfortable with that. Nat, Bob?
Yep. I'm good.
Mr. Jones, you comfortable with that?
I think condensing, as you said, Jim, is good.
Yeah, I just find it, very difficult to look at a bunch of questions and try to, condense them into just them. They start out as a small topic, and that's what we should be, maybe expanding on by very little bit verbiage,
Yeah.
and
So
then let
my
the
suggestion
people-
there is that, those questions are there just to provide prompting. And, if you get the questions 1 and 2, then you can sort of articulate them however you want, as long as we're covering that topic. You can read one of those questions verbatim. You can combine 2 questions together, whatever it is, it's for prompting purposes, not, for literal using every word. Just so as long as we cover those topics.
I understand that. So what should we do?
Well, my suggestion, if
Go
Rob,
on, do this.
doesn't mind, perhaps by, with Janice taking that list, he can throw the items that we've discussed, put them in the 8 buckets, and it's going to be, I think, fairly self-evident what's repetitious and redundant.
Yep.
And nail it down, and that gives us
All
our
right.
list, if that makes sense to everybody else, and if
Yeah.
Rob doesn't mind.
It does.
No, by all means, I think, yeah, if Janice, you've got good set of questions there, you can meld them into the different topics. I think it'll.
So Rob, you'll work with Janice on that?
Sure, happy to.
That'd be great. Okay, then go ahead. Was somebody speaking?
No, I coughed, sorry.
Okay, coughing is permitted. Okay, I'm not sure we need to go over the questions for the firms at the moment, unless any of you would like to deal with that.
You mean for the candidate?
Sorry, for the candidates.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think we could save
Kind
that.
of covered it already.
Totally. Yep,
We're all comfortable with
Yeah.
that?
yeah.
All right, cool. Next item on the agenda was the discussion. I'm sorry, I've lost that page on this other machine. Janice, the next item?
Matrix?
Yes,
The rubric, yes.
the rubric. Rob, would you mind
Yep.
walking everybody through the rubric? And Mr. Jones also has used a similar tool or methodology. And I think between the two things, creates kind of a binary situation that will help us with the searching that we're doing.
Yeah, so the rubric is a simple matrix. It's by each of the 8 topics, so that each topic is what I call a criteria. I provided a little bit of guidance about, how we might think about it in terms of evaluating the candidate, the headhunter's compliance or response to that particular topic. And then I provided a score, a maximum score for each of the 8 topics. And I varied the score based on what I thought was it's a weighting approach. In other words, some questions and more topics are more important than others. So I gave a more of a score to those that I felt were more important. And that score adds up to 100. And so then we would each take this matrix and score each candidate headhunter but by that, number 1, by the criteria, and then 2, by the score. So for example, I included quality of the proposal. We've already gotten the proposals. Some proposals were better than others, but I thought that was an important factor to consider, but not that important. So I gave it a maximum score of 5. And you can say, well, that was a 4 out of 5 or a 3 out of 5 or a 2 out of 5, but each of us would score the proposal based on that. And so then another one that I thought was more important, for example, understanding the Steamship Authority. I thought that was a pretty important criteria. And somebody who comes in here who really hasn't done their homework and understand the nuances of the Steamship Authority, what our challenges are, that kind of thing, I would think that was not as positive as somebody who really had done their homework. So I gave that a max score of 15. So somebody who did a lousy job would get a 2 out of 15, and somebody who did a great job would get a 14 out of 15. And so each one of these topics would get a score, adds up to 100, and then we add up the way it's scored. The max score is 100, and if somebody gets a 85, so it isn't a, we wouldn't necessarily choose or not choose a candidate based on this matrix, but it is a tool that we would use in our deliberations. And so that's my thinking behind it.
Yeah, I agree with that process. I had mentioned a matrix that we use to take a large group of candidates in a membership of a yacht club, which always had about 20 to 30 applicants more than they had room for, and so they had a cap, and so you had to eliminate, those top that group for the overage. And what it was basically a matrix or like a spreadsheet, where across the top you got the name of the candidate, and then down the side you name the candidate against, and the question you ask as you list the whole candidates: would candidate A, make a better member than candidate B? Would candidate A be a member, a better member than candidacy, et cetera, et cetera. And you would assign a 1 if it's favorable or a 0. And it is extremely interesting because the cream seemed to go to the top. I asked them all before not to divulge it, but to write down who you think would be the top picks. And it proved to be true. And the only time you got into a discussion was those that are borderline, they're either going to make it or not. But it was very effective. But I think, what Rob is doing, and I prefer what I, had talked about was the rating of the candidates, just as Rob has done, and he's used a numerical system, and I just want to think of. I looked at a scoring sheet and stuff, and they had 1 through 5, and with 5, being the top and 1 being low, and so if you rated somebody at 1, it would be unacceptable. It doesn't have any skills, not qualified. 2, below average, shows weakness, needs improvement. 3, average, basic requirements, overperformance or average performance. Above average is 4, strong skills, experience, and 5 is exceptional, and things like this. I just find to rate somebody 1 to 15 is like we do in our general managers evaluations and things. It gets really cumbersome, the difference between, points, and this just broadens it. But I don't want to complicate the effort. I think what you've done there, Rob, is more than fine. But this here is, when you start thinking about it and adding up the numbers, I guess it's gonna tell the picture. But we do need. It's important when you're doing this to ask the same question of each candidate, and and so your answers to that would be, evaluated against each response. And as to the question of disseminating this, at first I was opposed to it, but I think there might be some value that they at least have knowledge of what will be asked, so they can prepare.
Okay, a couple things. Hiring, in my experience of life in business, is one of the hardest things you do. What I like about what Rob and Bob are talking about is the discipline that it brings to the process, because my concern always is if it's too freeform, you wind up hiring the best actor, not the person who's going to be best for an enterprise. And since this is such a critical hire for the Steamship Authority, the more discipline we can put into this process, the better we are. So I think between what Rob and Bob are talking about, there's a methodology that takes us to the quantitative rather than the qualitative analysis of these firms and then of the candidates. So if perhaps we go with Rob's matrix, and to Bob Jones's point about giving the placement agencies some idea what we're talking about, maybe we give them the 8 general categories of questions, but not the questions within those 8, so that they can.
Jim,
Go ahead.
if I may,
Yep.
I would much rather go with what Rob has right now.
Okay,
The matrix is basically, it's a scorecard. And, I think, what Rob has prepared here, is fine to go with. So let's just do that.
all right. Then unless Nat, who just ran away, has an objection, let's do that. We use Rob's matrix. And are we of the opinion that we should give the placement agency candidates the 8 general topics and then give them the specific questions when we get into a question and answer period with them? Because I really personally don't want to sit and listen to somebody giving me their song and dance
Yeah.
pitch that they've given to every other potential client in the course of their history.
Yeah, no, we need to focus in on exactly what the steamship is. I think we all know. And I just want to say, I'm sorry that I just had to take a work call. We didn't know you guys. I knew Bob Jones, but nobody else. When we had, other general managers between Barry Fuller and Wayne, okay? And when someone comes in from the outside, it's natural for that person to want to make their own, version or whatever of what they think things should be like. One of the key factors here is that we know that we're bringing someone from the outside. We've never really even done that before as far as knowing it, right? I mean, that's very likely that that's what's going to end up happening. So we're in a different place than we were in 2017, and certainly in a different place than we were in 2000. Okay, when the 2004 rolled around, it was all in favor say aye for Wayne, like without even a discussion. Honestly, I was there at that meeting in Woods Hole, and we're in a new place, and we need to make sure that they understand that. Throw the book away of their past, just like you said, Jim. And we have a very unique operation here. It's a business and a municipality. It's got old school things and brand new fancy stuff. It's like a mixture of everything in one place. It's unusual. And this person that comes here has to be humble. They have to be able to listen to the people that are below this person, because they're going to know more than that person does. See, that's the key right there. The people that work here know more than the general manager is going to know. So it is a unique type of job. And I do think that there's somebody out there that can do this. Of course there is, but I think that what you're saying with the questions and telling the firms, I agree with that. We can't miss anything. We don't want to overcomplicate it and have redundant questions, but we also have to explain what we really are, okay? In regards to the seasonality of it and all that. Like, this is a really complex operation for someone to just come off the street and show up here and say, I'm the general manager. So sorry to get into all that, but that's how I see it, because I've seen it for a long time. And here we are in a different place, in a different time, and a different process. We've never had a process like this before.
No.
To do this.
Yeah. And let's do it right.
Yep, exactly.
So I guess where we are is we have the questions for the placement agencies. Janice is going to work to pull them together. They will fit within the 8 categories that we discussed. When we do sit down with these firms, we will have a give and take within those 8 categories. We're going to hold on the questions for the candidates till we get through with our interviews of the placement firms, and we move into placement firms. The rubric or the matrix or whatever we're going to call it, the search matrix, I guess, that Rob has proposed, I think is a good tool for us, and will add some discipline to the process, which I think is really, really important. Is there anything other in terms of the search, the first three items that we have on our agenda that we should be discussing, other than timing of when we want to do talk to these firms? Do we want to do it next week? Do we want to see if we can get them for the following week? What kind of time do people have available, and what time should we be looking for?
Can I just
Well-
comment on your first part of your question before we get to that one?
Sure.
You know, the rubric I think is important. I really appreciate your point about discipline. However, I want to be sure that, at least from my opinion, you know, the outcome of the rubric is not necessarily the outcome. In other words, it's just a tool.
Of course.
We may decide that one of the categories is such a home run and so important and so well done that even though somebody else got, you know, that we still have latitude to decide. It's a tool to help us decide.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the only tool that we
Well,
should use in a final
it's a
decision.
framework that adds discipline,
Okay, I just want to,
in my opinion.
good.
Schedules.
But one of
Go ahead, Bob, Mr. Jones.
yeah, the schedules. First of all, you know, before we start interviewing, we've got to make sure that we're sending out, you know, all the information, you know, to the candidates. And I don't know what time-wise that'll be. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to doubling up our meetings if it would get things moving faster. But of course, I'm retired, so I don't even know what day of the week it is, so it's
Well, I think
just
just think about what's reasonable. I mean, it's Tuesday of this week. If Janice was to get this stuff out, you know, in 48 hours, next week is pretty soon. You know, it might be a little bit optimistic, but you know, the following week would be a more reasonable planning time horizon, I think. But
Right.
I know if I was being asked, I'd like to, you know, have a chance to plan. But so
Right.
the earliest it could be, I think, would be the middle of next week, if not later. But my recommendation would probably be the following week.
I agree to the following week. Yeah,
Okay. Well, how about times during the day?
Yeah. You're reading my mind.
again,
What time now?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because during the day is actually, if that's going to be better for staff, which it probably is, and for the firms, I can, you know, I'm available during the daytime. They just have to, you know, once we figure out that schedule, I'll tell you when I'm available. But I think that's going to end up being the inevitable thing we're going to have to do. This can't be 4 or 5 o'clock.
No, and I also think it's my sense, if we do get 5 firms that we wind up talking to,
Yeah.
we probably should do 1 per day, or it's going to wind up taking people's
Yeah, good point.
entire day.
I thought we'd already agreed on the 4 firms.
I thought we went to 5. I may be wrong.
Maybe I missed that, but I thought we had whittled it down to 4.
You are
Yeah.
down to 4. Mr. Munier is correct. It's down to 4, correct?
Okay, I missed someone dropping out then.
So your point, Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not touching my hand thing.
Right. Let me.
So I agree with, I don't know if Rob, how he feels, and Bob, but it depends on how long it takes to talk to them. You might be able to do 2 and 2, but I'm open to this one per day thing. I think that makes a lot of sense. Plus, you gotta have time to discuss this afterwards too.
Yeah.
We don't want to just say, okay, in another hour, these other people are coming, and it's like, we haven't talked about the previous one yet, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Rob,
doing a good job.
Rob Munir?
Yeah. It's hard. I would just try to make it work. If it was my own preference, it would be late in the day, but I just heard Nat say he'd prefer it not to be late in the day, so.
I wasn't, no, Rob, what I meant was, I'm assuming that all you guys can meet during the day and that these firms and staff is gonna wanna be in, somewhat in the day. That's all I'm saying. I'm available in the daytime as well as 4 o'clock, depending on what day it is, but yes. That's what I was saying. I'm sorry if I misspoke.
Would it work for Nat and Rob and Bob?
Yeah.
And Janice and Terrence?
Yes,
If we were to meet at 4 o'clock and do one firm a day for 4 firms?
fine with me
I
too.
think that,
If I may,
Yeah.
just keep in mind the 2 of the firms are in the UK, so
Oh,
there's
I
the
think-
5, I think it's a 5-hour difference, so we'd want to give
that
them.
would have to be in the morning.
So
Yeah.
that would be at 10 or 11 o'clock.
Right.
Well, Jim, I mean, we're here to do what we have to do to effectuate the purpose of the committee, so. Whatever has to happen, so I don't think it's really that big of a deal. If it's 10 in the morning, 4 in the evening, or in the afternoon, excuse me, we'll do what we have to do. So
Thank you.
it's one of those things, but I will say that if, just for a point of clarification, as got my phone here and the calendar on, so we're talking about potentially the week of the Monday, the 10th.
Yeah,
Okay, that week for me is good. There is an issue that we have a board meeting on the following Tuesday, the 18th, so there's a lot of preparation for that on the 13th and 14th, just throwing that out there for staff's purposes, but in any event, we also are potentially considering, and I have to get Mr. Munier's feedback on this, so I'm just gonna bring it up now, that we're talking about potentially moving the next Tuesday's Port Council meeting to the 11th. There's been some ask for that. And I'm not sure.
I think Nat's the chair now, so you gotta convince Nat first. I do whatever Nat tells me.
and
I think
I'll
that
tell you,
was-
Mr. Salino can't stand it when we move the dates around on the.
Yes, I know that, and we appreciate that.
We
but
already
that's-
moved the Port Council once now already for February.
Right, so I guess the question is, are we moving the Port Council to the 11th? That's what I'm trying to confirm, and if we are doing that, then.
Yes,
That puts us on that week as well. So I'm just throwing that out there. So again, I think for firms that are in Europe, I think you'd have to do it, as we said earlier in the morning. There's a 5-hour time difference for them. So, we can do those in the morning, and then we can do the other 2 in the evening if you want to do it that way.
Well, what we could do also then, given the other meetings that are going on, what if, given the 11th and all, what if we were to try to do 2 of them in the week of the 10th, and then 2 of them following the board meeting on the 18th, and do the other 2 on the 19th or 20th?
I think that makes sense.
I can handle 2 meetings a day.
Yeah.
2 interviews a day.
And the only thing I would just point out, just from my trying to be objective viewpoint, is that you don't want to give the person in the door doesn't want to have the advantage. The first firm interviewed is going to have an advantage potentially over the firm that goes last. But I'm just throwing that potentiality out there, depending on how you structure it. So I'm just making a mention of that.
Or conversely, the firm that goes last can revoke everything that
Either way, yeah.
was said before.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just throwing that out there to keep that in mind so that we try to make an even playing field.
Well, can I leave that then, Janice, you heard what we're looking to do, which is to do one a day. We recognize the UK firms are going to be at 10 o'clock or so in the morning. We're looking for the week of the 10th, but we recognize that there's a Port Council meeting. We also know there's a board meeting on the 18th. So it may be that we wind up doing 2 in the week of the 10th and then 2 of the week of the 17th after the board meeting.
Mhm.
And see if we could schedule that.
Yes,
What I'll do, Janice, is I'll give you my meeting list. I've got a lot of meetings right now for the town meeting and planning and stuff, so I'll give you the days and times I can't do it.
that would be great.
I'll
I
send you
appreciate that. If others could do that as well, that would be helpful.
Okay. I will keep myself open for this stuff.
Okay.
All right. Then the next thing I wanted to have a discussion about was, as the members of this group are perhaps aware, from comments that have been made on our meetings, as well as from comments made through other organizations and news entities, there are some folks who feel that we should have an outside person as a non-voting member of our committee here, our working group committee. And I'd like to talk about that briefly. There may be some procedural issues with doing that, given the fact that this group was voted on and appointed by the full board of the Steamship Authority. Given that, if there is an interest in doing so, I have, as perhaps others, have heard from people who would be interested in filling that type of role if there is such an opportunity. But I'd want a sense from this group before doing anything on that as to what our collective view is on that issue. Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I understand, the public wanting to be involved in this, but when this board was constituted by myself, I picked 4 people that had long-time institutional knowledge of the Steamship Authority. And I brought that, the members, all of us sitting here, to the board for ratification. And they approved that complexion. So therefore, if we're going to do and change this, I feel that we have to go back to the board. And they're the only people who can make that decision. I don't think it's within our power to do so. And I'd just like to, make one observation that, but we who are sitting here, we have all been appointed by our communities. We are actually, the public. And with the enabling legislation, we not only serve our town and things, but we have a fiduciary responsibility to the Steamship Authority. Plus, we have to be bonded. And it's taken those that if you want to do it, my vote would be that we go back to the board and do this. I don't think, I understand the thing, but I don't know what can be brought forward by outside people. Right now, we have this board here as constituted. We have the general counsel here. We have the director of the HR, and we have the general manager, who will be general manager until he isn't. And he, will continue to be, called upon for his 38 years of knowledge and things, at least by myself. So for that fact, I think that's a stumbling block. It won't be a stumbling block if you want to bring it to the board and do it. But the second problem is we will be going into executive session once we start going with the candidates. And the executive sessions are very clear that it's for the board only. You don't, the public is not invited to executive sessions. And there's good reason for that. So anybody that comes in would not be allowed in the executive session where much of the work will be done on the things. So I don't know how somebody could bring their expertise and stuff, you know, through this whole process. So for me, and maybe Terrence, you can clarify that. Am I correct?
Well, I think, on your point that if the constitution or the composition of the committee has to be changed, that I do think that it has to go back to the board for its review, because under the open meeting law and so forth, the committee was formed via a vote as a subcommittee of the board. And so, and I think also from a, you know, all the board communities would want to have at least some kind of say into how that would go. And that's, again, as you pointed out, the board, as it's constituted and under the Enabling Act, has their responsibilities to each board community. So there is a say there. And they also mentioned, I mean, one of the reasons why we're having this public meeting and having these things conducted in public setting is to have people offer their public comments, which we'll be getting to, I guess, shortly, getting to shortly. So I think we're trying to be as transparent as we possibly can. I'm not really sure, as you said, I'm not sure what else we could do other than how we're operating, but I guess we could have that discussion with the board. We could put it on the agenda for the 18th and go from there.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Terrence. Quick question. Sorry, may I, Bob? Terrence, to the point that Bob Jones just raised, which would be if we had to go to the board and the board voted to put a non-voting outside person on this, in this working group, could that person attend the executive sessions as a non-voting member of this working group, if the board approved it?
I would say yes, because then, you know, if the board does that knowingly and understands that that's going to be one of the requirements or parameters or one of the asks, if you will, of the committee, then they approve that, then that's fine. Again, at the end of the day, it's the board that runs the show here. So, you know, if they want that to happen, they can certainly make it so, and we'll do it. We serve at the pleasure of the board.
Thank you. Now,
Hi, I didn't know we were gonna get this complex, but it doesn't surprise me at all. At all.
Try not to, man.
Actually, I'm getting so used to it, I almost expect it. Bob Jones, I love you to death. I do think we should go back to the board though, and I do agree with getting something along the lines of what Jim is discussing in play. And the reason why is because, similar to what I said earlier, when we did this the last time, I think we were on the telephone with one of those little things in the middle of the table. It was like, it was nothing. And then of course, the previous times it was really easy. This is a different era. And the public, you know, there's a lot of eyes on the steamship. There's a lot of people angry about the steamship. And I think that a member of the public outside of us is a healthy idea. Someone that is familiar with the steamship, somebody that doesn't have an agenda, they're not looking for, you know, fast boats to carry cars or some other crazy idea. They just want things to work. Okay. And having the right kind of person that's objective but not driven by something specific is important. And, you know, I have someone in mind over here that's actually talked to me for a long time about the steamship in a way that is a very constructive. I mean, not everybody is like that. As you all know, what island life is like. It's scary sometimes. But I think that this is a good idea. It has merit. It may not have had merit 5 years ago, but it does now, in my opinion, because of the amount of criticism and the amount of pressure that is on this entity that we represent. I appreciate you too, by the way, Terrence and Janice, for dealing with this. This is a different time. I say that all the time to people. It's just not. It's not a parent steamship, but it isn't even mine from 20 years ago. This is a different time, and we have to get this right, as Jim said. Can't leave a stone unturned. This cannot fail. We are too big to fail, to be honest. That is a good analogy. So as far as the executive session go, that question that Jim asked, Terry, is that legal or whatever, up to par? If the board votes for this non-voting member, whatever we're going to call it, can they go to executive session?
Well, if the board creates and permits him to be a member. So for example, I'll just use it as our current structure. So if yourself or Mr. Munier wanted to come to executive session with the board, and the board, you know, you're more than willing to do that, and you have attended executive sessions from my memory.
Yep.
So as you know, so I think it would be akin to that, and I don't see any real distinction as long as there's approval from the board in the first instance.
So the board has the authority to do that, to create that, to be able to be legal under the open meeting law or whatever.
Just as if they created this, just like as they created the search committee in the first instance.
Okay.
So they can modify the search committee if they wish to.
Okay, that's all. Good. That's why you're here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Rob, what are your thoughts on this?
So, as is so common these days, Nat and I are in total agreement.
No, I'm sorry, that's not common. I know
He
said these days.
No, I think the idea also has merit. I think the methodology for choosing the person could be tricky from the perspective of there'll be a whole lot of reasons why people have different ideas about how this person should be chosen. So I think that is non-trivial. So that is would be what's the process? I think you've made the premise that this is a non-voting member. I don't know that is necessarily a criteria. Could be a voting member, I suppose. So I don't know about that. I guess I would also suggest that there's no reason to derail the work we're doing now with the choice of the search firm. I think that is relatively non-controversial and something that I think will come up with a good outcome. And then in the meantime, we can be figuring out this for how we would add somebody, from the public to this committee in whatever fashion we end up deciding. So those are my three thoughts. I think we rave on with the choice of the search firm. But in the meantime, in parallel, address this question.
Okay, then if I could wrap this up, it sounds to me like there's a sense that this should go to the board to decide. The board can, Terrence, so that should go on the next board agenda, please.
Yeah.
It should go to the board to decide whether to expand this working group whether it should be a voting or non-voting member if it decides to add someone. The board would then make a decision as well as to how to select such a candidate or such an individual. And if that were the case, then to move forward. I do not, as Rob said, I don't want to stop this process. It's really, really important. I think there is some merit in getting someone who has outside experience in municipal hiring and hiring, in evaluation of candidates, and an understanding of the issues that this entity faces, as well as the issues faced by our port communities. And that would be, anyway, those are my views on the subject. And if the board in its discussion agrees to go forward with something like that, then obviously I'd support that. But let's take this then and put it on the board's agenda.
Yeah, we'll put it under old and new, Jim.
Okay,
Well,
I'm sorry?
we can put it under old and new.
Sorry, yeah, with half of our agenda for the next meeting, which is hiring and staffing.
Yes,
Mhm.
okay.
Okay, anything further before we go into public comment? Mr. Jones?
I've got nothing. I said my piece. I have concerns. And, you know, another voice is maybe good, is maybe bad. I don't know what it will bring, maybe a lot, maybe nothing. It's just to satisfy, you know, a public, request as I see it. But back to the board, which I
Okay.
don't know, when's the next board meeting?
The 18th, Bob.
Huh?
The
It'll be
18th.
on the 18th.
The 18th, yeah.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, well, let's just go back to the board and see what they think.
Okey-doke. All right, anything further, Mr. Lowell, Mr. Munier, Janice,
Nope,
Terrence?
thank you.
Nothing for me.
No, ready for public comment, I
Thank you.
guess, Jim.
Okay, and Janice, you know what you'll be compiling.
I'm sorry?
You know what you'll be compiling under the 8 topics, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, we'll open for public comment. Raise, your hand, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Hi, did you say Amy Cody?
Yes.
Hi, this is Amy Cody. I'm part of the steering committee of the Steamship Authority Citizens Action Group. As you know, we have about 100 people now who are part of our group. I want to make I have 2 questions and 2 comments. One question is, could you please tell us how many people are on this call today?
Currently 21, not including the panelists.
Thank you. And my second question is Bob Davis in the room? Is he on Zoom or has he recused himself from these search meetings?
Bob Davis is not in the room. He is not on the call, and he is not recused from these search meetings. He will be called on as the board wishes, as the working group wishes for advice on specific matters.
Okay, thank you. My third comment is I want to say thank you so much to Nat for suggesting that it's important that members from the public be on the search committee. And I would say to Bob Jones that it's not just because the public is upset that you're doing it, and you just have to do it because the public is pushing back on it. At the Film Center meeting of 150 people, the majority of people want more representation from the public. You've all said that none of you have done this before, an outside search. It's a very complex search. So it makes sense, like Jim just said, that you have someone who has experience with municipal hirings and in a very complex environment. that the steamship is in right now. So that's important to us. And it doesn't have to be just one person. It could be more than one person. It could be two people. Then you can also share the load. You can get more advice. You can get more input and more perspective. My last comment is we have said that we think there is a problem with having UK firms for a variety of reasons, and you have two. So you only have, so I think I'm just reiterating that seems to us a challenging firm to understand the culture of Massachusetts, our legislature, the candidate search, the Commonwealth, and island life here specifically. So I would just say that could be really challenging for UK firms, given that you have two in the running. Thank you so much.
Okay, and Margaret Hammond.
Great. You can hear me? I'm off mute. I also want to thank you for your meeting today. I think that it was very good in a number of ways. I'd like to make the suggestion, and also feel that it's great that you have come to wanting to have at least one outside person on the search committee. I would suggest that you make it part of your questions to the recruiting firms as you interview them as to what makes the best hiring committee. So, clearly they will know who you are, but finding out from them whether they feel it's a positive thing to have, hey, maybe an employee, maybe someone from another transit kind of organization, but some other input like that. And I think it would be great just to hear from recruiters. I mean, they clearly see a lot of hiring committees, so I think that would be a good source of information. Nat, I certainly appreciated your comments about this is a new kind of hire situation for us, and it's very difficult. As someone in 30 years of engineering did tons and tons of hiring, it's pretty easy to make some bad hires. And you hate it when you look back and realize you did that. So I think you're all being good in approaching this very carefully and with open mind and open questions. So that's mainly what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Jim.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your participation and thank you for your thought. Thank you, Janice, for pulling this all of this stuff together. Again, I remind people on the working group, if you want to communicate, send things to Janice. Do not hit reply all. It's all done in the blind, so it's not to violate open meeting laws, as we have done in the past. Let's keep doing that, because clearly, as we continue to hear, there are a lot of eyes on this process, and it's justifiably so. We want to do this right, and I know the community wants us to do it right too. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has to be a roll call because we're on Zoom. So,
Yep.
Munir, aye.
Oh, Munir, aye.
Lowell, aye.
Jones, aye.
And Malkin, aye. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Take care, guys.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
you
Yes.